There's a point in your awakening where it stops feeling exciting and it starts feeling exhausting. You're aware that you're growing and that you're seeing things more clearly, but instead of feeling better, you're actually feeling more drained. If this is you, welcome into Shelby Radio. I am Shelby Carino, and this is episode 740, and we are going to continue this conversation in the Awakening series about spiritual burnout, and that this is a real thing. And this is a topic that maybe we don't hear a lot about in Google land, because there's so much hype around, oh, you're waking up. Oh, look, you have so much awareness. Oh, look, your consciousness is expanding. Oh, look, you found your twin flame. Oh, look. And it's the shiny ball syndrome everywhere. You know what I'm talking about? This looks good over here. Now this, and now this, and now this. And there's just all this excitement and enthusiasm. And then you get to this reality as you're moving through the process and you're like, I'm fucking exhausted. I thought I'm supposed to reverse age. I thought I'm supposed to, redo my metabolism at this point. Like, what is going on? And this is very common. This is a part of the process, and nothing is wrong. It is just spiritual burnout. And it's not failure, it's just overload. And God knows, raising my hand, I have been through this spiritual burnout more than one time. And I keep saying this in my episodes, that spiritual awakening is not a one and done process. It is an ongoing process of self. Depending upon where you are in your awakening, depending upon what layer of your onion you are peeling, it always feels like you're starting over, yet you're not starting over. But yet you're starting over, meaning you're not starting over from where you were in that one layer of the onion. You're just starting over from a different depth in the onion. But a lot of times it feels like you're starting over, but you're really not, okay? And so an overload at each depth is different until you finally get to the place in your root or onion that kind of stabilizes out and harmonizes everything out. And then life just kind of becomes back to normal with all of the magic and blessings in there without feeling like you're constantly getting kicked time and time again because you're constantly learning a lesson. So it's a process, and you just keep moving through it. Now, what does spiritual burnout feel like? Well, it feels like emotional fatigue. Just emotionally cannot handle anything in your world. Okay? Maybe you overthink everything. So if you're not necessarily an emotional person, you may take it in as overthinking in the mind. Feeling like you're in constant awareness of everything that's around you. You're just on high alert everywhere. You begin to feel overwhelmed by growing to the point where you're like, I don't want to take one more piece of information in that has to do with growth, because there's no space in you to do that. And you're just wanting to turn it off. How do I turn this off? I woke up, fine. I don't want to wake up anymore. How do I turn it off? You start going through that in your head. Well, you're not necessarily tired of growing. You're just tired of processing. And that was a huge one for me, was when I recognized when I would get on spiritual burnout, I don't want to stop growing. I don't want to quit learning, I just wanted to stop feeling so overloaded in what I was processing. And so what that catapulted me into was, what can I create in my life that when I'm feeling overloaded, I can go out and have time to go down and process. And that is where Joe and I bought a camper. And even if the camper was first intended so he could take it out when he was going out to hunt and needed a place to stay, it turned out to be our oasis as a couple for us to process when we get overloaded and we want to leave the house, go into nature, get to the lake. You know, we have our home on wheels that we go through and do that processing in the camper. Okay. So that's what we created. You may create something different. However, you have to get to an awareness of that overload, accept that you're in overload, and then go, where and what can I do in my life to go down and process for a few days that your soul, your body of energy will appreciate? Where is that space for you? That's a part of taking care of self. Now, why does this spiritual burnout happen? That's a good question, because I asked myself that question a lot. But here's my perspective on it. It happens because when you undergo a rapid fire where your awareness is expanding so much, meaning your level of consciousness out here to take in information, whatever information that is. It could be your internal genealogical information. It could be the collective consciousness information, whatever it is. All of that information begins expanding your perspectives, what you see things to be, how you feel about those things, what you think about those things. And it happens really, really fast. Okay? That's that rapid fire. And so what happens is the nervous system gets overloaded because you're taking in information faster than you can run it through your body. So if there's too much input going on and not enough integration of what's being inputted, and that I need to fix everything at once feeling, then that's where the spiritual burnout happens. So that's why I tell people, get into my curriculum. When you began having this rapid fire awareness and expansion, because my curriculum of courses at each stage of the awakening process helps you harmonize the frequencies that are being input into your system through your informational channel. And when you can bounce that off and through someone else, such as myself, that I have duplicated myself through my courses, then you integrate the information quicker. It harmonizes and stables out the nervous system quicker. And it really helps to unload a lot of that anxiety because of what the nervous system is doing to try to process it. So I always say to people, when you're at this level of awareness and awakening, you have to pull somebody in that can help you move through that processing quicker. We're just relational beings. That's what we do. But you want to have the right person. So like for me, my mentor, I would pull her in and go, hey, I need a session. And I would run the energies. And obviously she knew how to run that and help me, get back to a more harmonized state until I got to a place in my awakening where I didn't have to do that as much because I was getting stronger. My immune system was getting built in the energies because I was doing so much healing. Okay. And then I ran it through my courses and then ran it through a tribe and ran it through clients. And, so there's just this ecosystem that we get into that helps us maneuver those frequencies that are being input into us that sometimes is so fast, we just can't integrate it fully all at once. And we need someone to just come in and help balance that. And that is why everything I put out, any content you see on my social media, in my courses, on my website, in my podcast, anytime my mouth is open or I'm on video or I'm putting something out, there is a frequency in there somewhere I can guarantee that's going to help harmonize something within you. Okay. And where I get to tell people is when you're ready for true structure and accountability in your awakening process, that's when my curriculum plays a part because it takes you through the process. And it takes about 3 years if you're committed, to go through those harmonizations. Now, that's a lot being said, but I'm very passionate about this because I'm so tired of watching people be in a spin and on a loop when you can really straighten it out, okay? Like, it's not hard. You just have to be willing to accept information to do something with the information that's already being installed within you because of your awakening, okay? So, but this leads me to the mental loop, okay? When people wake up, and I know I did this, okay? So I'm speaking from my experience that when you wake up and you have so much content coming at you, so much information coming at you, and also coming at you from different sources, meaning, you turn the news on, you hear voices in your head, you're listening to gurus, you're watching 5 million YouTube videos, you're listening to 5 million podcasts, you're listening to me right now, right? So when you have so much of that out there, you begin to analyze everything because you're picking it up from so many different sources. And then when that happens, you begin over-interpreting emotionally things. Not just how you feel, but over-interpreting things emotionally outside of you. And then you're wanting to try to solve the pattern of what's going on. And then what ends up happening is you lose the simplicity behind the process because you've just now complicated it. Because you're not grounded, you're swirling, you're spinning, okay, with no direction. And that's when my clients usually find me, is when they're in this level of the awakening, okay, the mental loop, because they're having an awareness without it being grounded. And that's when it becomes exhausting. That's when people go down with their health, or they lose time off of work, or they get sick, and they get to this desperation phase where they're like, I need help. And then all of a sudden they're like, I don't know, I just happened to be on Google and your business page showed up, or a reel showed up on Instagram and I don't know, I just kind of resonated with it. Or, the stories that I get told from people and how they find me and the content that I put out into the world is funny, because it's not like they were necessarily logically looking for it, but it just kind of showed up. So somewhere in their spirit, they were like, go find this person. This is the person you need to be talking to. Okay. Because they're looking for the grounding. And because I have moved through the waking up process in my feminine side way before I met Joe. Well, when I met Joe and my masculine came in, then that's the grounding. So I've done so much work through my masculine to ground what my feminine airy fairy was loosey goosey about back in the day. And then it, has continued to come and ground more and more and more. So that's why all of the content that I have out here is at different phases of my awakening process, which is why it's so powerful, because whatever you're attracted to is going to meet you where you are, which is where I was when I was going through it. Does that make sense? So whether it's my books, whether it's my social media, whether it's my podcast, whether it's my curriculum, whether it's anything else on my website, it all matters, because you're just looking for the grounding so you can move through the spiritual burnout. Now, I'm going to say this to challenge a belief system, because I always say there's nothing that you're doing wrong. But I'm going to say this is what people do that's wrong, okay? Which really means there's no wrong, but it is wrong, okay? Or you could find a better way. They push harder. So they're like, oh, I'm exhausted, so I need to go work harder. I need to put more things into my nervous system, okay? They push harder. They consume more content. Well, let me listen to now these 10 podcast episodes. Let me take these 30 different courses from 30 different teachers. Let me, go find 5 more friends and get emotionally overloaded by them. Like, people do this because they're trying to heal faster and they're not resting. So do not do that. And if you are finding that you are doing that, you need to have a session with me and we need to get that shit under control, okay? Because that is not what you want to do. You do not heal faster by doing more. You heal by allowing the integration. And that is where in society, we don't do enough integrating, because we're always doing more, which is why things happen out here with the weather, or back in 2020 when COVID was out, and like things out here on the planet are happening to shut us down. So we will rest. So we will get bored. So we will integrate. So we will stop doing. So we can get back to simplicity, so we can process the overload that we are bringing in. And if we as people and human beings out here living a spiritual experience do not do this on our own, well, then something outside of us will make it happen, so you will slow down, okay? Because that's what your body needs. Your body needs to slow down. That's where the integration happens. That's where the simplicity happens. That's where you become more present with self. And that is what leads to regulating your nervous system, because your body doesn't need more awareness when you are in spiritual burnout. It needs a space to process what you already know that has been coming in through your awareness. That's huge piece of information that honestly I wish I had when I first woke up, because it's a game changer if you understand this and then allow that process to take place. And sometimes that slowing down only needs to happen for 1 or 2 days. Okay? That's why, again, without Joe and I realizing what we were doing to get us to slow down, and then it just showed up in our world that we bought a camper, because I don't do tent camping. I have gone through that phase of like, oh, I can rough it out in the woods with nature. And no, I glamp. Okay. I want our camper. I want a nice cozy bed in the camper. I want a toilet. Okay. Like, I am okay with luxury at this stage in my life. All right. I've been through I'm going to go live in the woods for a minute and, be with nature, kumbaya. I don't have to prove that I can do that. So where are you in your process? Because for us, it was the camper, still is the camper. We'll leave for 2 or 3 days on a weekend. When I know that we're both overloaded and we need to process, we plan out the camping trips. Our energy runs in unison with that. We go out, we camp, we have a great time, we let go, we sleep really well, we eat really well, we come back, and then that week that we're back from camping, we see what we have integrated and what we have processed, and that's how we measure where we are in our awakening, because we get to recognize, do we have a trigger coming up? Do I feel more emotionally calm and stable? Am I back at Pilates? Like Joe has a different way that he references where he's at. So you've got to become aware to your awareness when it's time to slow down, simplify, become present, and get your nervous system regulated. So all of this to say that if you're in burnout, you're really needing to go through the integration phase. That would be a time to get into my courses because that will take you, you're not learning anything in my courses, even though you're learning. It's the frequency of the energies in my courses that integrate the frequencies within you that move you through the burnout. But then at the same time, you're getting a conscious awareness and understanding of like, oh, wow, that's what's happening. Oh, wow, that's what's happening. Wow. So it's kind of like all the bells and whistles are going off. The aha moments are going off. So you're not learning, you're integrating the learning that's already occurring. Okay. And this is where change within you actually stabilizes. And that is a huge necessary part to your awakening process at every single layer of the onion in the depth of however far you're going to go in this lifetime. Because this isn't where the growth stops, it's where it settles. And that is so important that you need it to settle. So if you're feeling exhausted right now, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. You're actually doing something right. And it just means that you've gone deep enough within this segment of your awakening and that now your system is asking you to slow down. So you have to pay attention to that. And if you need to do something in that slowing down process, like I said, maybe you need to get into the first course if you haven't taken it, Expanding Consciousness Fundamentals. Because when you slow down and allow that course to run through you, it's integrating while you're slowing down, and then you spit out on the other side. It would be, my courses are equivalent to like me going camping with Joe, right? It's the processing, the integration side, okay, in the slowing down. It's not stacking more in there, okay? It's moving through what's already in there. So in the next episode, we are going to talk about what comes next in awakening, which is rebuilding trust with yourself and learning how to listen to your intuition again. All right. So, follow me on Instagram at Shelby Carino. I put content out daily about my life and how I process things. It's all out there. Okay. So look at that because it's humorous. It's stupid. It's my life. Okay. And website again is ShelbyCarino.com if you want to look at my courses. And until next week, take care, and I will be back same time, same place.